We now move on to the CPC. What will the Buhari-Bakare administration do about corruption?
I want to first of all start by congratulating the PDP representative for trying. It's a difficult job. I said, we need to thank PDP for at least dignifying these debates with a representative. It means that he's not asking for expo, he's not absent. That means PDP knows how to staff their incompetencies. Now, as a nation, Nigeria, we know where we are incompetent as well. We are incompetent today in the place of corruption. We are leading. In many areas, we are the last, but in corruption, we are leading. Now, interestingly, our laws already provide the provisions for anti-corruption laws. Now, all that we need to do is enforce them. The reason why we have not been able to enforce them is because he that must come to equity must come with clean hands. That when your head is stealing, the rule changes. The rule becomes steal, but don't be caught. But when your head is clean, he has the moral right to demand the same thing from you. One of these we will do is enforce those laws. Second thing, we will remove the immunity clause that allows governors and electoral office holders to roam around the country perpetrating all forms of evil, knowing that they cannot be touched. Okay, so we're going to ensure that once the head is fixed and is tight, the culture of zero tolerance for corruption can go down the stream. Corruption is curable, is our biggest problem. And that is why we don't need any small measures. We need people that have the will and the courage to tackle it. And that is why it's General Muhammadu Buhari and Bakare.
All right. So ACN, what will the Ribadu Adeola administration do about corruption?
Yeah, without any sense of apology, of all the candidates seeking to lead our nation to greatness, Malam Nuhu Ribadu stands out. Nuhu Ribadu, you'll agree with me, is the only Nigerian that has fought corruption in a democratic setting. Because it is one thing to fight corruption as a dictator. It's another thing to fight corruption in a democratic setting where there is rule of law. And he is the only one with that kind of experience. And as we all know that corruption is the #1 problem of Nigeria. If I want to fix my car, I will give it to a mechanic that has relevant experience. I will not give it to an historical mechanic, but a mechanic that can fix the 21st century car. Because the Volkswagen my father used in 1984 cannot compete with the Ford that you drive today. So that is very, very important. So Nigerians, in making your choice, you must give the man that can do the job the opportunity to do the job. It is so sad that Nigeria had been falling on the TI ranking. In 2008, when Nuhu Ribadu was in charge, we were 121. But right now, we are 134 out of 178 nations. Are we doing better or we are doing worse? So that is a question we should ask ourselves. And to do this man has the experience. That is why he knows who the thieves are, the new thieves, and he's going to get them. So just put him there.
Okay. Thank you very much. And audience, okay. So we have dealt with youth development and corruption in this segment. So taking it in the same order, does any one of you have a question for Uche on youth employment and corruption. Okay, ACN. Okay, two of you. ACN first.
Yeah, Uche, I want to know what happened to the SS crude account. I was reading the papers, and the Minister of Finance was saying that the reason why they spent the money was because the money was put in an illegal account. So I want to know, was it that the account was illegal or the money was illegal? So please, what happened to what?
Every day I read something new in the newspaper. This morning I read 200 people killed in political rallies, this, just off point. I mean, the story does not even make sense. There's no credible sources. I mean, if you want to ask such a question, bring the newspaper here, show it to us. How do you expect me to address for such a question? It doesn't even make any sense. How can an excess crude account be eaten in Nigeria? Like, we underestimate ourselves as Nigerians. We look at ourselves as second-class citizens. We look at ourselves as unintelligent people. We look at ourselves as dummies. That, one minister said the money was here, it was in the wrong account. Does the story sound well for intelligent people? Do you think we are capable of doing such things? And these are the things in which our government has to answer day by day, just because they're in government. It has turned to political cynicism. The question doesn't have any relevance.
Please allow him.
It did not happen.
Please.
It is not true.
Allow him. If you object to what he's saying, you will have the opportunity to bring that up. Please allow him.
It is not true. It is not a fact. Please.
Okay. You have any question for him? Please go ahead.
The question I have for PDP is a very small question. Every time I get home at night, the adverts just keep on coming consistently. And I see that a lot of money is being spent in what has been termed a farewell service by PDP to Nigerians. Can you please give us enlightenment on the sources of the funds that are being used to, Patotomi calls it 100 million naira per day, to fund these campaigns? Just a little enlightenment.
I also read in the same newspapers, Patotomi said we spend 100 million naira per day. I really wonder whether Patotomi had a meeting with our accountant. Our accountant now said, look at the figures. We are spending 100 million naira per day on for the campaign. You have to understand that PDP is the biggest party in sub-Saharan Africa. You have to understand that the PDP has existed for 12 years. You have to understand the number of people who are in the PDP, people who have on their personal sources, their personal funds, are funding the campaign, doing different initiatives. You do not address a question like, oh, they're spending 100 million naira. Who are you talking about? I mean, different groups are campaigning for PDP. Did you sit down with the accountant of PDP when they are spending 100 million naira a day?
Okay. So, thank you very much. And I think that does it for the second round. Okay. You have a question? Okay. No, I mean for rebuttals for the PDP. So, does anybody have a question for NTP on youth development and corruption? Does anyone have a question for NCP on youth development and corruption? Anybody with a question for CPC? Go ahead.
My big brother, Adeolu, you spoke very well about your convictions about Buhari being very well positioned to fight corruption. And I'd like to take you down memory lane, back into time, back into history. When Buhari became military head of state, in the history of Nigeria today, his administration has the highest records of double standards. So we talk about coming to equity with clean hands. So if you are coming to equity, your hands must be clean. When Buhari took power, he put Shehu Shagari under house arrest and threw Vice President Alex Ekweme into Kirikiri prisons. Double standards. So how convinced are you that as a civilian president, that Buhari can really fight corruption? When, as we know, his campaign is being partly funded by some of the fat cats in the system today.
Please answer him.
I will answer your questions in two ways. First of all, his presidential candidate was one of the people that was used for the investigations to discover what Shagari's liability was and what Ekweme's liability to the government was. And I'm sure he's told you how fantastic a crime fighter he is now, and he was then. It's not a case of double standards. It's a case of how, based on the investigations that were made, what was found with them. I tell people in Nigeria, it takes a prince to bind a prince. The biggest forces behind corruption in Nigeria are not small boys that you can brush aside with a broom. The biggest perpetrators and the people funding corruption in Nigeria, we know them. They are big wigs. They've been there. They've been playing the game for years. If he handled it then, he will handle it now. All those facts about, as if you can check them. Eventually, they discovered that Shagari didn't even have much to him. They were supposed to owe him an apology and let him go. So, no double standards, perfect standards. Please,
okay. 1 minute up. So, anyone with a question for ACN? Okay.